the Aerosoft CRJ 550 and 700, and today we're going to go through the Powerup Flow. So as you can see, that's used when there is not any power on the aircraft, screens are dark, and we need to get everything running. So first thing you do in the flow, check that the circuit breakers are all in. So look to the right, look to the left just as you enter the cockpit. And that's the best way to check if any circuit breakers have popped. Everything looks like it's in and flush, so we'll sit down in the captain's seat. And next thing you check is the maintenance status of the aircraft. So typically there'd be a maintenance log right here to your left. Make sure there's nothing broken that's going to affect the powering up of the aircraft. Also, it's not a thing in the sim, but in the real world, make sure that the mechanics didn't leave a sign here that says that they're working on the airplane. You wouldn't want to put power on an airplane when there's a mechanic working on it and they could get electrocuted. So from there we'll move down to the ADG handle. Make sure that it's stowed. It should be flush with the panel. We don't want anything happening with that deploying at any point in this power-up flow. And then we move up, make sure that the radar is off. The flap lever is at 0, or agreeing with the position the flaps are in, but typically it's going to be 0. Thrust lever is at shut off. Spoiler at 0. And then the gear lever needs to be in the down position. From there we move over to the left, make sure that the nose wheel steering is off, and we'll come up here, make sure all the hydraulic pumps are in the off position on the hydraulic panel. So now we're ready to turn the battery master switch on and get battery power on the aircraft. This is DC power. You can see we have ED1 and ED2 that have now turned on. So we'll go to the electric page, and first click, you're going to be shown the AC electric synoptic page, and then you hit it one more time and you're now on the DC side, which is where the batteries are. So here you want to make sure that both the APU battery and the main battery are above 22 volts, which we're showing 26 and 27 volts there. So that's good. And you need to get AC power onto the aircraft within 5 minutes of turning on the battery master. And that's because these CRTs, or cathode ray tubes, are cooled by AC powered fans. So if you don't get power on within 5 minutes, you could burn up these CRT screens. So there are a couple ways you can get AC power on. The first, you could click here, turn on your EFB on the Aerosoft CRJ, and there's a ground power card available. So click that, you can get it connected, and you'll see that now on the overhead panel, there's an avail light in the AC electric switch. So hit that, and you can see that now you have external AC power powering the aircraft, and it powers on both AC and the DC side through these TRUs, or transformer rectifier units. That's what allows the AC side to power the DC side. But we're going to look at the other way that you can get AC power on the aircraft, and that is with the APU. So if you're going to start up the APU, there is a procedure to use. It is detailed in the document that is attached to this video in the description section. But first thing you need to do is the FIDEX test, because you need to make sure that if there's a fire when it starts up, that it's not going to cause a problem with the aircraft or the APU. So I wanted to show you this. You need to see fire sys OK. There, a green advisory message at the top, which we did see. So that all looks good. I'm going to cancel those really quickly. And first thing you do, hit the power fuel switch for the APU, and you'll see you now have the APU gauges on. Wait for the APU door to open, which it has, and now we can hit the start stop switch. So we'll see the start light come on. APU will start powering up, and typically I start a timer. You can hear it firing up back there. And before 60% RPM, the APU start status message should go out, which it did. And typically the APU gen switches left in the auto position, just like Gen 1 and Gen 2. So as soon as it fires up and has power, we'll see all the screens come on. And now on the electric page, you can see the APU is supplying all of our AC power. So we have AC electrics on the aircraft now. We can turn on the external lights. So typically in the daytime you turn on the nav light. At night or in low visibility you could also turn on the wing inspection light and the logo light. But that's usually dependent on the airline that you're operating for and what they would like to have done. So next we have a stab trim test that the computers do. So first thing you need to do, turn on all the hydraulic switches. So 3A is the only one that'll move down here to turn on, the rest will go up. And then we're going to activate these stab trim switches and we'll get a message. We'll go back to the status page. Right here, spoiler stab in test. So when this test is occurring, you do not want to hit the tiller wheel or disconnect the stab trim. Just leave it all alone, let this test finish. Don't remove the hydraulics either. Okay, so now that it's off, we can go ahead and move the hydraulic switches as required. So I'm just going to turn them back off for now. But that's an important test that the CRJ 550, 700, 900, and 1000 will do every time you power it up. Just make sure that all the ICAS messages here all look legitimate, nothing funny that's showing. And if you did happen to have a second page of these amber messages on the cast screen, you could hit the cast button and it would let you move the second page. If they're all contained on one page, as you can see, hitting the button will box them. Hitting the button again will unbox. So same over on with the messages over here, the status messages, you can box them and unbox them. So ICAS are checked. Parking brake is on. The parking brake handle is down here if you do need to click it for any reason. The IRS switches, which are right here, move those to the nav position. It takes quite a few minutes for these to align, but after you go to nav, you need to come down here to the FMS, and typically it'll be in the status page, and you go to pause init, type in the airport where you're located. So we're at Denver International right now, so I'll put in the airport identifier, and then don't use the FMS position here. Go to the second page and use GPS position, which is GNSS1 here, and go into set position. And now the system is aligning, and it can take quite a few minutes. And obviously here in the Aerosoft CRJ, you can make it as realistic or as quick as you want to. So they do have here on the options page where you can change the speed of the IRS alignment. So I think it's right here, IRS align time. I have it on realistic, but you can make it quick or even instant. So that's a neat thing to have. All right, and after you've done that, you just go and make sure that you have the pneumatics set. So there's some details on that in the document in the description of this video, but typically turn on the recirc fan and make sure that you have the bleed air, normal, bleed valves, and auto, and that's typically where you want to be. There are a few exceptions. You can read about it in the document below, but that's the power up check. We have power on the aircraft, and we'll go through the receiving check in just a minute.